welcome everyone. Just a couple quick housekeeping items before we get started here. So please keep your microphone on mute and your video off during the presentation, just so we can avoid any background noise or distractions. We suggest using the speaker view on Zoom so that you can see the presentation. There'll be some slides to go along with Jen's presentation. There will be a 10 to 15 minute Q&A at the end. So please submit your questions through the chat function in Zoom, and then I'll read those to Jen at the end. And we'll try to wrap everything up by 3 p.m. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm Peter Zangi. I'm the president of the Milwaukee Preservation Alliance. And I'd like to thank you all for attending and deciding to spend some time with us this afternoon as we discuss the Historic Homeowners Tax Credit Program. So for those who may not be familiar with MPA, we are a nonprofit historic preservation advocacy organization founded in 2003. Our vision is to make preservation mainstream and work to educate about the cultural, economic, and sustainable benefits of historic preservation. Until now, we've been an all-volunteer organization, but we have an exciting announcement about our new executive director that we'll be sharing next week, so stay tuned for that. As a nonprofit organization, we rely heavily on the support of our membership. If you value the work that MPA is doing and would like to become a member, please head to MilwaukeePreservationAlliance.org. Also be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date. Now, before we get started, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Jen Dable. Jen was recently appointed the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer at the Wisconsin Historical Society, which is the federally designated state historic preservation office for the state of Wisconsin and administers the Homeowners Tax Credit Program. Jen holds a BA in Architecture from the University of Minnesota and a Master of Architecture with a certificate in Preservation Studies from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. After 11 years of work for architectural firms in Minnesota and Wisconsin, she joined the State Historic Preservation Office as a preservation architect in 2010. In the last 9 years, she has been responsible for reviewing projects affecting historic buildings and structures in both the western half of the state and the southern tier counties. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jen.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining us. As mentioned, I've been here for the past 10 years and really enjoyed reviewing tax credit applications for both homeowners and commercial or income producing properties. And I'm proud to announce that we have 2 new tax credit reviewers, Paul Porter and Claire Buscemi. They have been with us for a total of 2 weeks and they're still with us, so yay. It's exciting, and I have their contact information at the end of this presentation. And so while you can always contact me, your best people to contact now are Paul and Claire. So with that, we will get started. I always like to start this presentation with the fact that we know we're all proud of our homes, especially if we are lucky enough to have a historic house in Milwaukee or anywhere. But we understand that historic homes, all homes I would say, but historic homes have repairs that can certainly add up. And that's where this homeowner tax credit program comes in to be so handy. I also like to, just to let you know, state of Wisconsin, we have a 20% income tax credit for commercial buildings or income producing properties, and coupled with the 20% federal means if you have a building that produces income and you want to do a rehab project, you can collect 40% of that back in the form of income tax credits. And our office also administers that program. Again, your contact would be Paul and Claire. But I just wanted you to be aware of that. That we have that in addition to our 25% homeowner tax credit application or program. And the reason I like to say that is because we don't have a marketing budget. This is it. This is our marketing. It's talks like these that I'll do and Paul and Claire will do. And then we just ask you to spread the word about these programs. That's really the only way we can continue to spread the word to our neighbors and throughout the community. With that, I'd like to say that the state of Wisconsin, I think, is pretty special because we have this 25% income tax credit program for residential historic buildings. Not all states have homeowner program. And in fact, I think we are definitely in the minority in that respect. So we should be very thankful and proud of that here. The program began in 1992. And I can tell you in 2019, we approved $16 million of eligible work for homeowners across the state. I guess I would also like to say this at this point. Many of you in Milwaukee may have remembered Mark Beekle. He was a reviewer here in the Society for the past 13 years. Mark Beekle in March accepted a position at the National Park Service in Omaha in the Midwest region. And so Mark Beekle is no longer here. I apologize, I should have explained that, and that's with my promotion and with Mark moving on, that's why we have Paul and Claire. So I apologize for that, if there was any confusion. So in order for you to qualify for this program, it's pretty simple. The first thing is that your house must be a certified historic structure or determined eligible by our office, by the Wisconsin Historical Society. And this means that your property could be individually listed on the State National Register, although that's, I think, somewhat rare. Most likely, your property is contributing to a historic district in Milwaukee. And Milwaukee has many residential historic districts. The other way that you could become eligible for this is if you send in the Part 1 of the application to our office. And we have a committee here called the Resource Evaluation Committee. And we will review your house and determine if we think it's eligible for listing. If it is, then you can go ahead and apply for those tax credits without ever having to get your house actually listed on the State and National Register. So that's the first qualification. The second and third has to do with the amount of work that you plan on spending on this particular project or projects. The state statutes were written that each application has to have a minimum of $10,000 worth of work on it. And that could be made up of many smaller projects. You may replace your furnace and paint the exterior of your house. And together, that's more than $10,000. The maximum investment per application is $40,000. And I don't know what the legislators in 1992 were thinking, but the state statutes are actually silent regarding the number of applications an owner can submit either at one time or consecutively. So let's just say collectively you're going to spend about $60,000 and you're going to put a new roof on and you're going to paint your house and you're going to replace your furnace, and that's $60,000. In order to maximize your credits, we're going to split that work onto 2 applications, because then you're going to get the full 25% of the $60,000 that you spend. Otherwise, if you were to submit it all on one application, you're only going to get 25% up to $40,000 per application. And I can tell you that we have homeowners that submit multiple applications at one time, and that's just fine. We also have homeowners that may submit an application today for their furnace and their painting, and then next year they have another project. That's just fine. There's no limit on the number of applications that you submit over time. We'll say that. The last qualification is that all work that you do must meet the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. And I'll talk about that. No worries if you've never heard of that, but that's what we in our office, so Paul and Claire, will be reviewing your applications per these standards, is what we call them. As I mentioned, the property must be a certified historic structure, and we have various types of historic homes across the state of Wisconsin. It's fantastic. Sometimes people don't know if their house is listed or not. And so I just put a couple screenshots here for you to see. You can visit our website, which is wisconsinhistory.org. And in the upper left, you see the first screen, and there's going to be a series of buttons. To the far right, you see a Preserve Your Homes and Properties. You're going to click on that button. Below that is the next screen you're going to see. And it says a property record search. And you can simply enter your address there. To make it easy, I would say just enter the number and the street. and hit go. And on the next page, you can narrow it by county and community. We have his architectural history inventory has thousands upon thousands of property records. It really means that your house has been surveyed. And so if your property comes up from that search, it means that it's surveyed. It does not mean that it's listed, okay? You're gonna look, and on the far right, you see here is a particular building, and you scroll all the way down, and under designations at the bottom right there, it says National State Register listing name. There's the building name, the listing date for this national and for the state. That's how you know your building is actually listed on the state national register. If under that designations, everything's blank, that means your building is not yet listed. And you'll want to do that Part 1 application and have our Resource Evaluation Committee review that. The next thing people ask, a common question, is what's eligible for these tax credits? It's pretty easy. I like to start by saying, think about your house and the exterior of your house. Really anything to do with the exterior of your house is going to be eligible, from a new roof, if you have window repairs, or if you want to install new storm windows. Replacing original windows gets a little tricky, but we'll talk about that. If you have any masonry pointing, cleaning to do, if you have a wood house and you want to paint it, if you have exterior doors that need repair, if you have a porch that needs repair, any of that work is going to be eligible. On the interior, again, I think of it as the MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. So if you have knob and tube wiring, you can get that updated. All your plumbing, you can update from the cast iron pipes to safe contemporary piping. If your furnace or boiler breaks, you can replace those and get tax credits for those. The other thing on the interior, the only other thing on the interior that's eligible is structure. And I have a photo on the bottom left of your foundation, of a foundation wall. So foundation walls are a common thing that need repair or attention. But really that's the only other thing on the interior that's going to be eligible for the tax credits. Ineligible costs include things like refinishing your wood floors or redoing a bathroom or a kitchen. Those things are not going to be eligible except for any mechanical, electrical, or plumbing associated with that kitchen or bathroom model. Insulation is not an eligible expense. And new additions, as in the upper middle photo, if you put a new addition on your house, that's not going to be eligible for the tax credits. But oftentimes people are going to be doing some work to their historic house and at the same time do an addition. We will still then review that addition for conformance with the Secretary of Interior standards. I just like to list, common tax credit projects. These are things that we see all the time. Exterior painting, pointing or repointing your brick house or your stone house. Siding. That does not mean installing vinyl siding or fiber cement boarded siding is appropriate or approvable. What that is let's say you have a historic house and in the 60s somebody put metal siding on it. If you want to take that metal siding down and restore the wood underneath, that cost would be eligible for the tax credits. And I actually did that with my house in St. Paul. It was very rewarding. Windows, as I mentioned, if you need new storm windows or repair, maybe you have broken sash cords. If you want to weatherize your windows, you can do that. Sometimes we have a historic house and the original windows are long gone and you want to install a new window to replace that replacement window, you can do that. Of course, we'll look at the type of window that you'd like to install. Repairs to porches and railings are very common tax credit projects. Gutters, downspouts, and roofs, also very common. And of course, replacing furnaces, boilers, air conditioning, things like that. This is one of my favorite tax credit projects, and I like to use this as an example. This is a farmhouse located in Mineral Point, Wisconsin. And I know we're all used to seeing kind of those extreme makeover shows where you start with something that's just kind of in really poor condition or shape, and by the end of the show, it's just this brand new house. This program is not meant to be an extreme makeover type show. And you can see in this case, the photo on the top shows what this farmhouse looked like before they started the project, and the photo on the bottom shows the after. It's not big differences, but the work that they did has greatly enhanced and helped stabilize this house for the next 50 years, right? They put a new roof on. They repaired and had to replace or install a couple missing shutters. They painted all the trim around the windows and the entry. This project also had pointing work done on the stone. So again, beautiful. And what this work has done is retained the identity and integrity of this farmhouse, which is really the goal of the program. Timeline and costs. Another common question is, how long is this going to take? What's it going to cost me? The research, planning, getting your estimates, that's kind of on your time. So however long that takes you. We're very proud to say here at the Society, once we receive a homeowner's application, we really strive to turn it around in 7 to 10 days. We understand that it's difficult to get contractors, to get estimates, and to get on their schedule. And so if you finally gotten to that point, you want to get that approval as quickly as possible so you can get that, keep that contractor on your schedule. The designation, meaning listed on the state or national register, that is not required for the homeowners program. And lastly, we do not have any review fees for this application. I think I'm talking to mostly people in Milwaukee, but this might also apply if you have an outbuilding, a garage, a carriage building. In the upper right, you see a picture of a barn. And this is actually the barn that's connected with the farmhouse I just showed you in Mineral Point. But if your house has a historic garage, detached or attached, or a carriage house or something like that, and it was built during the period of significance, usually about the same time as the house. So the same features or elements that are going to be eligible for the tax credits for your house would also be eligible for that outbuilding. Again, as long as it's for your personal and private use and it's not income producing. All right, I have a few slides here just going through the application. This is when I like to say, if I can figure it out, anybody can. We've tried to simplify these applications and make them very user-friendly. So this is the part 1, evaluation of significance. The first is just the property address, street, city, county, zip. The next three is you're going to pick one. Is your house individually listed? Is it in a historic district? Or is this a preliminary certification, meaning your house is not yet listed, but you'd like to see if it's eligible? So you're going to click one of those. Next, you're going to list your name and your information. Presumably, you're living at the same address, correct? Project contact. I would say most homeowners list themselves as the project contact. The only time that you wouldn't do this is if maybe you've hired a contractor to do all the work, and you're really saying, I don't really know a whole lot of details about the project, but call my contractor. Then you'd list his or her name there along with an email and a phone number. We also need current photographs of your house. And this means we need a current photo taken within the past 30 days of each side of your house. We understand that sometimes houses are close, so you may not be able to get a perfect straight on. Do the best you can. We completely understand that it might be at an angle because the house next door is pretty close. We ask these photos to be in color and at least 4 by 6, printed on photo paper. I would say 9 times out of 10, people just get them printed out Walgreens or something similar to that and send those in. That's really helpful for us so that we understand what you're starting with, what the house looks like today. The other reason why that's really important is that we scan these photos and we'll upload them to our inventory, which you saw on our website. And this is great for research purposes. Think of in 50 years, somebody's going to buy your house and they're going to say, I wonder what the house looked like 50 years ago. There's going to be the pictures that you sent in and we scanned. So it's a really great practice to have. Lastly, we do need you to sign the Part 1. Part 2, the beginning looks pretty similar, right? It's all the same kind of information. And even though this is very similar to the Part 1, we do need both pages to be completed. The second page of the Part 2 is really where we get all the important information from you. Now, keep in mind that this homeowner's application is on our website, which is wisconsinhistory.org/tax credits. And if you go and get the application on our website, you're not going to be specifically circling these items, but you're going to be selecting them. This is just the version before we kind of turned it into our web version of our application. The table on the top here is all of the tax credit eligible work. And so you can go down the list and you can see exterior doors, chimney, electrical, foundation, HVAC, masonry pointing, painting, all of these items that are eligible. Of course, we left a couple lines at the bottom. There may be something else that's eligible that is not common and we haven't run across that yet. But let's say you're doing something with your HVAC. We want you to tell us, is it the boiler, the furnace, is it the air conditioning, water heater, or softener? If it's all, select all of them, okay? So you're gonna go through that and do that for your list. You're gonna also give us the estimated cost. And really that's for us to help you make sure that this application, you're gonna maximize your tax credits, right? That this is between $10,000 and $40,000. We do get these in, and sometimes there's $80,000 worth of work on one application. Well, then folks in our office know to split these onto 2 or 3 applications so you can maximize your credits. We also ask for the start date and the completion date. These are just estimates. But the reason why this is important is because the state statutes say very clearly that no work can begin until you receive approval from our office. And so if you have a start date of April 2019 and we received, and it was completed in May of 2019, and we get this application today, we're gonna have to contact you and say, I'm sorry, this work is not eligible because it's already done or already started. On the bottom of this page is a table of ineligible work. So this is the work that we're still gonna have to review if you're doing it at the same time. But it's not going to be eligible for the tax credits. Things like driveways, the light fixtures themselves, or the sinks, toilets, the fixtures themselves are not eligible. It's the rough electrical and rough plumbing found in the walls that would be eligible. Insulation, refinishing floors, plaster repair, landscaping is not eligible, new construction, and any other kind of interior remodeling. Again, you list the cost and start and completion date for these items. Sometimes people say, Jen, if I'm not getting tax credits for this new addition, why can you guys review it? Or why do you guys have to review it and approve it? And the reason why that was in the state statutes is that the state is looking at this as a reward for appropriately retaining the identity and integrity of your historic house. And so if you're doing something great with window repair and painting, but at the same time, you're putting a really large addition on the front of your house, which would destroy the identity and integrity, we're not going to be able to give you the tax credits for the other. In a nutshell, it just means all work that you do needs to meet the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. And we're here to help you with that. We're not here to be a roadblock. So for example, if you have this addition and we say, I'm sorry, this doesn't meet the standards, you can say, Can you help me figure out how it could meet the standards so I can get tax credits? Yes. Paul and Claire and others on our staff, that's what we're here to do. So we can definitely help you do that. The last page of this application is a request for a 5-year project phasing. And this is really important because if you think you're going to need more than the standard 2 years to complete the work on your application, you're going to want to fill out this 5-year phased application. Because we can't extend the 2 years after the application has been approved. So if there's any question that you might need more than 2 years, I'd fill this out because it's not going to harm you. If you still get the project done in 2 years and you want to close it out, fine. But this at least is a bit of a safety net for you. And if you do this, we just need you to list work at least in the first 3 years. We're not going to hold you to it. You can move work around. If a contractor in year 1 is going to do work in year 2, and it's fine. We don't keep track of in what order you do the work. So that's really the application. It's on our website, like I said, wisconsinhistory.org/tax credits. You want to make sure you click on the homeowners button. And the other thing that is on our website, I know I went through this quickly, but there is a voiceover webinar where it's me and I'm just walking you through step by step the homeowner's application. So if I went too fast, feel free to go to our website and you can click on that and it'll just be me and walking you through the application. All right, so now we're going to move to the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. And it looks like I have about 15 minutes, so this will be perfect. The standards, we call it the standards, was written by the National Park Service and it was completed about 1976 to coincide with the federal income tax credits. And this is really the best practices for historic buildings. It's used across the country. It's used by every SHPO office. It's kind of the book. So a book of golden rules for historic buildings. Let's just put it that way. There are 10 standards. I'm not going to go through all 10. Again, if you'd like a copy of the standards, if you'd like actually like a book, you can email Paul or Claire and they can mail you that. Otherwise, the standards are found on our website. I'm just going to go through with the highlights so you can kind of understand how we here at the Society are going to review your application. You've heard me mention identity and integrity of historic buildings. Let me explain that a little bit. The building on the left is Black Point. It's one of our historic sites, and it's a beer baron's cabin, summer cabin. It's a beer baron from Chicago, and he came up and built this on Lake Geneva. This house retains perfect identity and integrity, meaning if that beer baron and his family came back today and looked at this house today, he'd say, wow, there's our summer cottage, because it has not changed at all. The railings, the windows, the paint, the roof, there's nothing different about this house. It looks the same. Not only does it look the same, meaning the identity, the integrity is all there. All of those railings you see are all original. The windows are all original. The wood siding is original. Even inside, the plaster's all there, the wood floors. I mean, there's not a lot that has been done to this house at all. And so I use this as a great example of identity and integrity. In contrast, the photo on the right is a one-room schoolhouse. And this one-room schoolhouse may look identical to the original. However, this one-room schoolhouse has been, we call it loved to death. The wood siding is new, the windows are new, the roof is new, the bell tower has been completely rebuilt. On the inside, the wood floors have been replaced, the plaster has all been removed, and it's all new drywall. You can see the chimney is down, gone. The only historic material that is left of this building is probably the wall studs. And so this, unfortunately, is no longer considered a historic building. It's a new building that looks like a historic building that once stood there. So that's kind of a clear example of integrity. This building may retain identity. It may look like a historic building, but it does not have any integrity left. That's kind of the golden rule of the standards. Now I'm just going to go through a couple of standards that might help with your historic home project. Standard 2 says the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. Meaning, every historic building has something that makes it special. The photo on the right, look at that. I've never seen anything, and this is a house in Milwaukee, but there's that little figurine holding the lantern over the front door. That's a character-defining feature. And so for an example, if you wanted to take that out and fill in that hole, we'd probably say, maybe you should probably keep that, help, repair it. Things like exterior doors and windows are definitely character-defining features. Siding, brick, there's so many things about each house that makes it character-defining. So I'm sure you can look at your house and figure those things out. And so we're going to want you to be able to keep those and repair them, definitely. Standard 3 says each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development shall not be undertaken. Okay, this photo I know is funny, and this is not in Wisconsin. This is actually in Colorado. And I'm sure this was done as a joke, but it illustrates this standard perfectly, meaning your house is what it is. We don't want you to add to it to create a false sense of history. And so obviously this looks like it's a false facade, maybe like for a movie set or something. But what's important is that if you ask to add Italianate brackets to your mid-century ranch and it never had that, we're gonna say, no, can't do that. Standard 5. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a historic property shall be preserved. Brick. Brick is such an easy example of this, but it's not just brick. It could be masonry. It could be the type of wood shingle roof you have. There's so many examples of wonderful craftsmanship that is seen across Wisconsin. So I can't really tell you exactly what your house, but brick is a really good example and one that we see everywhere. And so if you say I need to repoint my brick house, we're going to give you conditions so that it's done correctly, meaning we're going to ask you to use tools that don't damage the brick. So sometimes it's hand chiseling out. There are automated tools that can do that. We're also going to look at the type of mortar that you use. The photo on the lower right is a photo of what happens when a chimney was pointed with mortar that is much too hard. Mortar is supposed to be the sacrificial element in a masonry construction, meaning masonry, just like any material, expands and contracts. And that mortar is supposed to allow that brick to move. When the mortar's harder than the brick, when that brick tries to expand, that mortar's not going to move, so that brick is going to start to spall and fall out. And so that's exactly why we lead you in the right direction, so that when your wall is pointed properly, it looks like the upper right photo and not the lower left photo. The lower left is an example of a mason that didn't know what he was doing, and he cut those joints much too large, and this is what happens, and that greatly alters the identity of your historic house. Standard 6, deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. And this goes hand in hand with what we talked about with identity and integrity, right? You don't want to just replace everything because it just ends up looking like it's a new house that looked like an old house at one point. So we want to use things like wood epoxy to repair porch posts, and we want to reglaze our historic windows and use some wood epoxy to repair those things. It's really so important for so many reasons, and I could talk about this just on a separate webinar. But I can tell you that homes built before 1940 had used old growth lumber. And old growth lumber is harder and more dense than any lumber you can get today. And so this porch post that you see on the left that they're using some wood epoxy to repair, that wood porch post with some wood epoxy can last another 100 years. If you were to just replace your wood porch post with new growth lumber, it may last 25 years, 20, depending on the water situation. So from a sustainable aspect, from many areas, it's really the best thing. And from our perspective, what we're going to be looking for in your tax credit applications. Standard 9, additions. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old. I can tell you, we don't see a whole lot of additions to historic homes, but it's certainly not crazy. I live in a historic house and it's small, and so I understand the need to put an addition on. And I like to say it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. The photo on the left shows a very appropriate addition to a historic house. It's not taller than the historic house. The materials are compatible. The design is compatible. And so while that's not eligible for tax credits, that's an appropriate addition. The one on the right, however, is not. The addition is taller than the historic house. The materials are different. It's located on the front facade, which we would discourage just because we want to retain the original form and identity of the historic house. So really additions should be put on the back of the house to retain that historic facade. But again, if you have more questions about that, feel free to call Paul and Claire, and they will certainly be able to answer those questions. So here I have Paul Porter and Claire Buscemi's phone numbers and emails. And to make it easier, Paul Porter is he has the Eastern District of Wisconsin, but that includes the northern half of Milwaukee. And when we say northern half, that's north of 94 that runs east-west through Milwaukee. That was Mark Beekle's old territory. So if you had Mark Beekle reviewing your homeowner's application before, Paul Porter would now be your reviewer. Claire Buscemi has the western half of the state and also the southeastern corner, Kenosha, Racine counties, and the southern half of Milwaukee County. So anything south of 94, Claire will be your reviewer. But I think this is a great time to open it up. I've made it under my time, so we have lots of time for questions, if there are any.
Excellent. All right, thanks, Jen. Yeah, we do have some great questions here. So starting off, first one was, I had work done 3 years ago. Can this be retroactively applied for?
No. And that's just because of the state statutes that say all work needs to be reviewed and approved prior to beginning the work. So unfortunately not.
Got it. Next one is, are cement board or other wood-like materials approvable for siding?
Probably not. And I say probably not because we know historic buildings, there are so many different situations that come to play. But if we're just talking about, I've had the question, people say, can I take off my wood siding and put up fiber cement board siding? No. We want you to repair that original wood siding. If there's areas of rot which happens maybe down at the base where more snow buildup is or whatever, we'd ask you to replace the rotted wood boards with new wood to match the original.
Next one is air conditioning included as part of a furnace replacement?
Yes, if it's a central air conditioning, meaning there's a condenser. Window air conditioners are not eligible for the tax credits, but a central air conditioning, yes, definitely part of the mechanical systems.
Okay. Next one, the concrete floors in my basement and also in my garage are crumbling. Would a fix to this be eligible?
Yes, that determination was made a few years ago that the concrete floors in our basement and garage are part of the structural system, so yes.
Okay. Does the tax credit phase out with higher income?
It shouldn't. This is what I tell people. I'm only an architect, not an accountant. But I should have put this number on there. I understand there's so many different situations with taxes. I would recommend you contact Craig at the Department of Revenue. Craig is the tax credit specialist, and I can give you his phone number. His phone number is 608-266-7177. And his name is Craig Quammen. And I give his name and phone number out all the time. So don't be shy to call him and just ask him that question. He should be able to help you.
Okay. Call Craig.
Call
Next
Craig.
one, are there any credits available for rehab or income producing investment rental property? And are these available for work already completed? Know the answer to that one.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Are there any credits available for the rehab of income producing / investment rental property? And are these available for work already completed?
Yes, there are. No, if it's already completed. So I just briefly mentioned the 20% state and the 20% federal, and that's for any income producing properties. So if you have a residential rental building that's income producing. So it's a completely different application and review process, and we still review everything per the standards. But if the work is already done, then you cannot apply for it.
Okay. What does it mean if my house is listed on the Wisconsin Historical Society website as contributing, but is not listed as designated?
Contributing to a historic district means that it is listed on the state and national register. It just means that that's how it's listed on the state and national register, as contributing to a historic district. Listed individually is if there are buildings or homes that are listed individually because of the type of construction, or it's the best example of classical design in the city of Milwaukee, something like that. So that's how your building can be listed individually, but most buildings listed on the state and national register are contributing to historic districts.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and so then there's a follow-up question. If my house is contributing, does that mean my house is eligible for the tax credit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
Next one, I search my property. It has a reference number. I think that's kind of the same question, so we'll skip to the next one. Cleaning or restoring old Cream City brick, is that eligible?
Yes. As long as on the exterior. I'm assuming you have a Cream City brick house, which is very common in the city of Milwaukee. So yes, cleaning that would be eligible for the credits.
Got it. Scrolling through the comments here. Looks like the tax credit is designed to cover costs of contractor labor. Is there any provision to cover homeowner labor?
I didn't get that one.
It says it looks like the tax credit is designed to cover costs of contractor labor. Is there any provision to cover homeowner labor?
That's a good question. So if a homeowner wants to paint their own house, They cannot claim an hourly rate for their labor unless they have their own business and they're paying Social Security and all the other taxes that go along with owning your own business, right? So if you're a homeowner and you're going to be doing the work yourself, the cost of the materials is going to be eligible. Any equipment that you need to rent, if you need to rent scaffolding or anything, that's going to be eligible, but you cannot claim labor if you're doing the work yourself. Good question.
Next question. Is there a recommended list of carpenters, painters, plasters, etc.? We run into problems finding people who are tuned into our old house.
Yeah, great question. 10 years ago when I started, there was nothing. And I was getting frustrated because people were calling me from all over the state saying, Jen, I would love to replace my windows, but I don't know who does that. And I said, I don't either. So over the past 10 years, I have been collecting names of contractors, masons, anybody. And I've been collecting these names from people like you guys, from the homeowners and from owners of these commercial income producing projects. If they have a mason, and I saw that mason did just an incredible job on their project, he or she goes on my list. People that repair windows, they go on my list. So these are only come in to me from you guys. You can't buy your way on the list. You know, you can't ask to be on the list. I have to have seen your work. Now this list we can't put on our website because we're a state agency. And these are also not official recommendations. So this is what I'm going to tell you. You can email or call Paul or Claire and say, hey, Claire, I live in Milwaukee, and is there any masons that you can give me? She can't recommend, but she can go onto this list and say, here are masons that we have on our list in Milwaukee, and I'm providing them to you for informational purposes. And we can certainly do that. And it's a starting point, right? Right now, contractors are so busy. And so I've been doing that, and people call me back and they say, Jen, these people aren't calling me back. I can't do anything about that. It's just contractors are really busy. There's a ton of work out there right now. So we don't have any control over these contractors, nothing like that. It's just these people are people that we've seen do great work on historic buildings. And with that, I also ask all of you out there, if you have worked with a contractor, a mason, a carpenter, a roofer that you think did a wonderful job, please let me know because I will, and let me know what the project was, and I'll look at that and see if we can get them added to the list, because it is really such a great resource for people around the state.
Okay, so basically there's no published list, but contact your office. You'll be able to point them in that direction.
Let Paul or Claire know and they can help you.
Gotcha. Next question. Current house has wood siding, but it's covered in lead paint. Can I get the tax credit by replacing the wood?
You can get tax credits to remove the lead paint.
Okay.
But we would not approve removing the wood siding just because it has lead paint on it. There are plenty of companies out there that will come and strip that paint for you and repaint it, and you can get credits for that.
Okay. The next question is kind of specific, but maybe you want to answer generally. Would adding a shower or expanding bathroom be okay? Would the plumbing and electrical be eligible?
Say that one again.
Would adding a shower or expanding bathrooms be okay? Would the plumbing and electrical be eligible?
Yes, and that's done quite often. So if you're going to add a new bathroom, remember the actual fixtures are not eligible, but all of the plumbing, I call it rough plumbing and rough electrical, to get it set up is going to be eligible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question. Where would you go for historic siding and historic windows? My windows were replaced in the 50s. Will it be covered if I replace the picture windows with historic windows? Would that be covered?
Okay, so your windows were replaced in the 50s,
Mhm.
and you want to replace them so they better match the original windows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're not going to go find historic windows to do that. That would falsify history is what we call it. So you don't ever want to take a window from a different building and put it in yours. It's going to be confusing. And so the best thing is if you find historic photos so you know what type of window your house had,
Mm-hmm.
I would go and look at the residential window manufacturers. Most likely the original windows were wood, so you'd want to put new wood windows in. And there's companies like Marvin, Pella, um, there's others. There's so many others that can do that. And certainly, if you have additional questions about how to do that or best practices, please feel free to call Paul or Claire.
Okay. Is there a tax recapture period on historic homes, and are there any restrictions on the property in the future if you use the tax credit?
Good question. See, I just left all this information out so you guys could ask me these questions. Yes, so the state statutes were written that in order to claim the credits and to keep them, you have to own the house for a period of 5 years from when the Part 3 was signed. The Part 3 is the last form when all the work is done. You're going to fill that out and mail it back to us along with after photos. So we're going to, Paul or Claire will sign that. And so you have to own the house for 5 years from that date. If you only own the house for 3 years after that and you need to sell it, then 20% per year can be recaptured. So 2 years short, that means 40% of your total credits would need to be, you'd have to repay to the Department of Revenue.
Okay.
And the reason they did that, I'm told, is that they did not want this program to be used by people flipping houses. That this program is really meant for homeowners that own their historic homes and intend to live there. So.
Okay. Sure. Do you submit receipts to claim the credit after the work is done?
Say that again?
I think they're asking about getting the credits once the work is done. They're asking you to submit the receipts in order to claim them.
Oh, how do you claim them?
Yeah.
Super easy. Claire or Paul are gonna sign that Part 3 form, and they're gonna mail it back to you. You make a copy of that and you submit it with your taxes, and there's a tax form called Schedule HR.
Okay.
And that Schedule HR form is super easy, and you just submit the Part 3 form along with that.
Okay.
If you have more questions about that, please call Craig at the Department of Revenue again.
Sounds good. Are architect's fees eligible for the expense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, if the architects are working on the historic house. So if you have a historic house, but the architect fees are in relation to that new addition you're putting on, no. But if they're helping you with the rehab of your historic house, yes, those architect/engineering fees would be eligible.
Okay. Here's another good one. If a property is listed by the National Park Service, State Historic Preservation Office, and the City of Milwaukee, whose comments override if they are in conflict?
Nobody's. You have to meet them all. And we've seen that happen, not often, but you're going to have to meet the most restrictive between our comments and the City of Milwaukee. If you're in a zone that the City of Milwaukee has oversight on your house, but you're also applying for tax credits, you're going to have to meet both. And whichever one is more strict, you're going to have to meet that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Next one's long. If you start the process for residential and then shift to utilizing the property for income producing purposes, for example, in response to COVID issues, can you convert an active application or project from the 25% of up to $40,000 for the residential to the 20% program for commercial?
It's probably not going to work because there's different financial minimum for the commercial program. So for example, for the state of Wisconsin, your project has to be a minimum of $50,000 to qualify for the commercial 20%. For the federal, it's even more. So that would be tricky to do.
Okay. Are architectural engineering consulting fees eligible? I think we answered that one.
Yep.
Briefly describe the process for actually applying for the tax credit with the Department of Revenue, what they expect from us.
It's really the Schedule HR and a copy of that Part 3 form. That's about it.
Okay. We had Marvin windows put into our 130-year-old house, and they're fantastic. No more drafts. And they're explaining, but oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't a question. That was a statement. Endorsement of Marvin. I need to use a structural engineer for a staircase turret that is sinking. Can I pay for that before the project is approved?
I didn't catch that. Well, before the project's approved?
It says I need to use a structural engineer for a staircase turret that is sinking.
Yeah.
I want to pay for the engineering work first.
Yep, that's fine. Things like architects and engineers reports or whatever, that work is the work that can be done before the application is approved. That's the exception to the rule.
Okay. Let me see. There's a question earlier about solar panels. Asked if it was eligible on a non-historic garage, which I assume would be no, but I guess what would solar panels in any case in a historic property be eligible?
Yeah, we're going to look at the solar panels as long as they are they're powering your private residence, right? We're also going to look at where you want to put them on the roof of the house. So we're not going to want to see it from the public right of way, from the main facade, the street or the sidewalk. So we ask that people put it behind, on the roof that's not facing the street, or they can set it, on a pole in their yard, or maybe put it on a non-historic garage is a good example. But yes, solar panels it's part of the electrical system.
Okay. Can stucco repair and repainting qualify?
Repair and repainting of the exterior of your house? Yes.
For stucco, yeah.
Oh, for stucco. Yes, definitely.
Okay. Looking through to see if I missed anything. Dawn's question, it was a two-part question, so I want to make sure I didn't miss part of it. She'd asked about a contributing building, and then you answered that about being designated. And then there's another question: if my house is contributing, does that mean it's eligible? I'm not sure if we addressed that one or not.
Yep. Okay. Contributing houses are listed on the state national register, so yes, they're eligible for the credits.
Okay. And the reference number means that it's listed and or eligible? No.
Well, there's an AHI number, which just means it's been surveyed and it's on our inventory, right? Mm-hmm. So that's when you have to scroll down to the designations portion of your record on our website to see if that designations is filled in with dates and names.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm. But again, if you don't know, if you look it up and you still don't know, feel free to call Paul or Claire. Okay. That's why they're here.
Great. Okay, so it is 3 o'clock here. Let's see, one more question about windows. It says, since replacement windows are a big issue, can you expand on what is expected for use in replacement windows?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Sorry. basically it was asking, since windows are such a big deal, is there more guidance that you could provide on what is expected when windows are replaced?
Yeah, thank you. We have some great articles on our website. We have over 140 articles about anything to do with historic buildings. So I would highly recommend going there, and you can find those on wisconsinhistory.org/preserve-your-building. There we have probably 5 articles about windows and why you should keep them, why you should keep your historic windows, if you have to replace them, what to look for. But if you're applying for homeowners credits and you want to replace your windows and it's simply for energy, we can't approve it for that reason. The windows have to be deteriorated beyond repair before we can approve replacement. And so you're going to have to send us photographs of the windows and explain from your perspective why you think they're deteriorated beyond repair. Things like broken sash cords, that's not deteriorated beyond repair. And energy efficiency is not deteriorated beyond repair. So for those reasons, that's why I say windows is a tricky one. We really want you to repair them and just put a really great storm window on them.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right. Well, we had a lot of great questions here, so I want to thank you again for taking the time to answer all of them. This is super informative, and a lot of people have been asking if they can get a copy of the presentation, so we did record it. Jen also sent us a copy for slides, so we're going to share this with everyone. And if you found it interesting, please tell other people about it, because a lot of people own historic homes all across the state and aren't aware of all of these resources. So
yeah.
It's a really great thing to be able to access. So yeah, Jen, I'd just like to thank you again for your time.
Of course.
And thanks everyone for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And everybody spread the word about the tax credits, please.
Yes. All right. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye for now.